My test shows that the iPad 10 is not as bad as everyone says. In some ways, the $449 iPad is better than all Android tablets. However, it has a few weaknesses, and I noticed one major downside that nobody is talking about. In this review, you will learn what I like about the iPad 10 and what this one unknown weakness is. I think it's great that Apple got rid of the old design and Lightning connector. The simple iPad has the same basic design as the iPad Air and iPad Pro now. The body is still made of aluminum and feels premium built. It's 7mm thin and weighs in at 477 grams. I've gotten the yellow version, but you can also get it in blue, silver and pink. Apple has unfortunately removed the headphone jack and there's no microSD card slot either. However, I like that the Touch ID fingerprint sensor is now part of the power button, just like on the Air. And even better is that we get a USB-C port instead of the old Lightning connector now. It's slower than the one of the iPad Pro and as fast as a USB 2.0 port, but you can still connect external monitors. There are 4 speaker slots on the sides with 2 speakers in total. The sound quality is pretty good and we finally get true stereo separation. Because of that, it's a great entertainment tablet. I also like that the 12-megapixel ultra wide-angle webcam sits in the center when using the iPad in landscape orientation now. On all other iPads, the front camera sits on one of the shorter sides. The main camera on the back also resolves at 12 megapixels and the quality is very good on both. The built-in hardware is fantastic. The Apple iPad 10 is equipped with an Apple A14 chipset, which is supported by 4GB of RAM. You can choose between 64GB and 256GB of internal storage. A version with 5G is also available. In the Geekbench 5 benchmark comparison, you can see that the iPad 10 is significantly more powerful than the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 series. So it's faster than the best Android tablet on the market. It's slightly stronger than the iPad 9, but sits below the iPad mini. The iPad Air with the M1 and iPad Pro with the M2 are much more powerful. This is what the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme test shows as well. The graphics performance is better than any Android tablet, but it's clearly below the iPad Pro. So the performance is fantastic for this price range. Apple's processors are so powerful that developers can hardly fully utilize the performance on an iPad. So you can play games like PUBG Mobile, Asphalt 9 and Apex Legends with the highest graphics settings, and all these games run very smoothly and look good. Even compared to the latest iPad Pro, it's hard to see a difference. That's what my video render test shows. I rendered a 9-minute 4K video in Adobe Premiere Rush, and here the iPad 10 takes only slightly longer than the M2 iPad Pro. However, that's also because no software is fully utilizing the M2 yet. It's also clearly more powerful than the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8. Let's move on to the display, and this is where my praise ends. At 10.9 inches, it's gotten a bit bigger, and the resolution of 2360 by 1640 pixels is nice and high. Everything looks sharp. I especially like that it's very bright at 500 nits. Very few competitors are brighter. Colors also look great and it supports Apple's True Tone technology. Now we get to my criticism. I think it's very disappointing that the display is not laminated, and that's despite the fact that it costs $450. An air gap is visible between the IPS panel and the touchscreen. This makes it look as if you don't touch the screen directly, especially when using the Apple Pencil. When you tap the screen with the pencil, it also sounds a bit hollow, because that's what it is. I think this is also a reason why the black levels are not as good as on an iPad Pro. Blacks look more like a dark gray, even compared to the 11-inch iPad Pro, which also has an LCD. Especially in a direct comparison, the iPad 10 is also much more reflective because it's lacking a good anti-reflective coating. I noticed another weak point that no one else mentioned so far. If you use the iPad 10 in a landscape orientation and you're scrolling, a jelly effect or rolling shutter effect is visible. It looks like one half of the display responds a bit faster than the other. Such an effect can be seen on some 60Hz tablets. These include the iPad mini and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S5e. I don't think it's as bad on the iPad 10 as on the mini, but it's noticeable. A mix of praise and criticism continues regarding the Apple Pencil. It has some good features, but also some negative ones. Although we get the same design as the Air and Pro now, the iPad 10 works with the first generation Apple Pencil only, but not with the Apple Pencil 2. The Pencil 1 charges and connects to the tablet via a Lightning port. The iPad 10, however, has a USB-C port. Apple's solution is an adapter that you have to buy separately. Without this adapter, you cannot connect the stylus to the tablet. Also, you can no longer charge the stylus directly on the tablet, but you need at least the adapter and a USB-C to USB-C cable. Other than that, the stylus works the same as before, and I think it's a really good one, which is better than many Android tablets. You can draw well with it and write down handwritten notes. Of course, the not laminated display is a bit of a downside and distracting, but most people actually don't notice that. The iPad 10 runs iPadOS 16, which is the same software that also runs on the iPad 9 and 8, as well as the Pro and Air models. Therefore, I don't have too much to say about it. In general, I think it's great that there are many more apps for iPadOS that are optimized for tablets than for Android or Windows. The selection is huge, especially if you want to work with a tablet or need it for school or university. I also like the fact that iPadOS can be used with a mouse and keyboard well now. Safari displays web apps just as well as the desktop version, and you can connect almost every accessory like hard drives, microphones, monitors, and complex USB-C hubs using the USB-C port. The only downside regarding the software is that the simple iPad does not support the new Stage Manager. Although the iPad 10 now looks like an Air and Pro, it does not work with the Magic Keyboard. That's a bummer. Instead, Apple has released a new keyboard called the Apple Magic Keyboard Folio. It costs a hefty $249 and currently works with the iPad 10 alone. We already know the basic design of the Magic Keyboard Folio from many Lenovo and Samsung tablets. It's made up of a back that connects magnetically to the tablet and has a folding stand built into it. The folding stand can also be used without the keyboard. The keyboard is also connected magnetically. The display and the back are protected when folded. Sadly, you can't use the keyboard at an angle as you can with Microsoft's. It's always lying flat on the table. In general, however, it's a very good keyboard, with which I like to write a lot, like this review. Similar to the Magic Keyboard, the keys have a good travel, and for a 10-inch tablet, the keyboard is quite large. New for Apple is a bar at the top with function keys. A backlight is missing. The touchpad works well, but is quite small compared to a laptop. In my battery test, the iPad 10 got a runtime of 5.5 hours. For this test, I always loop an HD YouTube video at maximum brightness. Considering that the display is very bright, this is a solid result, but not a great one. So, is the iPad 10 a good tablet, or has Apple made too many mistakes? The processing power is really good at this price, and I like the high quality build, the bright display, the speakers, and the new keyboard. On the other hand, it's unfortunate that the display is not laminated, and this jelly effect is not great either. And the USB-C adapter for the Apple Pencil is ridiculous. Apple did not make the iPad 10 not perfect by accident, of course. They are quite careful to make sure it's better than the iPad 9, which is cheaper and still available. At the same time, they made sure to not make the iPad 10 as good as the iPad Air. It positioned itself right in the middle, in such a way that you're inclined to buy the iPad 10 if you're considering going for the iPad 9. But if you're willing to spend over $400 from the beginning, the iPad 10 has enough flaws to make you seriously consider spending even more money on an Air. I reviewed the iPad Air, of course, and in this video you will find out if it's worth it to go for this tablet. It's better in almost every aspect, but it's also more expensive and it's not perfect regarding everything.